Guy Mathias, good morning.
Good morning, David. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for making time for our conversation today.
You're more than welcome.
I'm looking forward very much to discussing the various roles you've played over many years within the security industry. And that includes the Pharmaceutical Industry Security Forum.
Indeed.
Where you were chairman for, I believe, 4.5 years.
Yes, indeed.
Your role as a board director of the UK Security Institute. And your current role, which is as a senior security and group security risk advisor for Suntory and Lucozade Group here in the UK.
Absolutely.
Would you like to introduce very briefly yourself and just tell us some of the things you're involved in at the moment?
Well, at the moment, David, my responsibilities, I think, in the modern world of risk and security are many. So in the portfolio, obviously risk, with its plethora of responsibilities based around identifying emerging risks, running a risk register, ensuring that we have the appropriate governance control measures in for compliance as to how we deal with emerging risk and threat to the Suntory Group and to the Lucozade Ribena part of the business. Fundamentally for us, it's a question of trying to assess perhaps the top 50 and then working through on a running and ascending or descending scale.
Top 50 risks, are we talking
Top 50 risks that are emerging throughout the industry sectors, for our particular industry sector, but also the obvious ones. So it wouldn't come as any surprise at the moment to inform you that we're paying close attention to Brexit. We're paying close attention to events on the other side of the Atlantic and indeed within Europe generally in terms of any geopolitical aspects as well. So it's those sort of global geopolitical risks, domestic risk in terms of how the exit from the European Union could affect us. And then it's looking at the other things that perhaps are specific to our particular brand. We're very brand-driven, very brand-led. And also to look at the picture in the bigger sphere, because we are a Japanese-led organisation with a presence globally across the world.
Well, that certainly gives us plenty to talk about. So just to pick up on a few things there. First of all, your brand. You have global brands which are recognisable all over the world.
Very much so, yes. They are fantastic brands, amazing brands, tremendous history and a tremendous positivity in the marketplace, and incredibly iconic brands. So we have our Lucozade in all of its various guises. We have our Ribena, we have our Orangina, we have our whiskies, and we have our spirit division and associations around the whole concept of water. So very diverse, eclectic, massive range of fantastic brands.
So that's on a daily level. So somebody goes, anybody watching this video anywhere in the world would have probably seen one of your brands this morning, and quite possibly their children would have drunk their brands sometimes this week, which is a very nice thing for you to have. On the other hand, I imagine it puts a lot of pressure on, because you have things like quality control, reputation management, a global culture which creates an overarching framework within which all of those activities can take place under one umbrella.
Absolutely. And I think that is the challenge for us, because these strong and amazing brands are very much there across the globe. And I think it's to understand that risk profile for them. You quite rightly point out that it's quality. We have to make sure that first and foremost the quality of our brands is there before they go to the marketplace, and we have a fantastically strong quality team and supporting process driving that route to market, allied to our fantastic sales and marketing organisation that we have and the sort of dynamic leadership profile we have, as one would expect from a modern multinational organisation. But it's to understand those images we have to portray, and also that brand reputation, and to protect issues that could compromise that, whether it be anything to do with product recall, or, God forbid, product contamination, or any threat to those global brands that are out there. So we want that consumer out there to have a great experience. You mentioned children, very kind of you to do so, but actually this is a demographic that is 4 to 60, 4 to 70. You know, it's our product range is vast. If you look at something like Ribena, Ribena is a brand that's been around since the mid-1940s under a UK government initiative to get great opportunities for vitamin C back into a population that wasn't getting much vitamin C to offset some health issues there. And how it grew from that particular aspect through to the Lucozade brand, which, as you can see, is, when you visit our HQ here, it's all about energy, it's all about well-being, sport, and how we adapt to that profile. So we have to protect those, and we have to protect the other brands in our group. And they are also very strong and iconic brands.
To come to a very specific security risk management issue, you mentioned contamination. It's an easy way to get some headlines.
Yep.
Anywhere in the world, you don't even have to do anything, you just have to claim to have done something, and immediately that becomes almost a national issue. That'll be on the front pages of every newspaper, it'll be the lead article on the TV news programs. How do you plan for that, and how do you mitigate and protect against it?
Yeah, it's key to what we do. So we work on those very strange old-fashioned concepts called joined-up thinking and mutual support within the organisation. So every function in the business is mapped into the risk compliance program. So we have representatives from each discipline who are part and parcel of our supporting sub-risk teams, who then feed in almost pyramid-like. So we start with the baseline of each department, each business unit and division has its own risk analysis group. And they're responsible for maintaining, identifying and addressing emerging and current risks. That is then fed through to a specific team chaired by me, which sort of processes and analyses those risks. That works in association with the risk register that I mentioned previously. So we put those risks into the risk register, but it's a live and active document. The purpose is to make sure it's fit for purpose and it's relevant at all times, 24/7. And then we have a representative body as we move up the pyramid of governance with regards to how we look at assessing those risks as we move up the chain. So there is a risk management committee, and that comprises key specialists from within the business who are influencers and enablers to ensure that we maintain risk as a key component of what we do in the business. And it's a key business strategy. And it's my thanks to the board of directors and the great work of the General Counsel that we've been able to get this positioned at that particular level.
I think it's interesting what you say, because speaking to most people who are working within a corporate environment at the strategic and almost conceptual level that you are, is to get support from the wider community of senior stakeholders. And
very much so.
And that they understand the value of it, but also that you can play a part at that level as an equal with them at that level of the organisation. How much of an issue has that been for you within this organisation?
It's been great to come into an egalitarian organisation that listens, more importantly affords time and opportunity to not just listen to me, that one would hope is important, but actually it's about listening with other people. The experts, I have to listen about risk to the experts who are in my quality control group, my legal group, my sales, my marketing, my supply chain. They're the experts in what they do. I just try and act as a mere enabler and facilitator to deal with those issues when they come through. The fact that you've got the ear, very much so, of the E-suite, the C-suite, whatever you want to call it, is tremendous. And the fact that that's mapped through the sort of process with Lucozade Ribena into the European group and across on a global basis to Japan. And those levels of support are to be applauded.
As a Japanese somebody working within what is a Japanese organisation, do you feel that on a daily level, does that have an impact? If somebody was around here, would they know that this is a Japanese organisation in its culture, on its management systems, or its... processes?
I think very much so, yes. I mean, we have an ethos that runs throughout the Western side, or perhaps the non-Japanese side, but it emanates strongly from those principles of the founding fathers in Japan. So our corporate term, very much used around a one-team ethos, is yata minahare, go for it. And the whole concept, it's 3 words, but boy are they such good words, because everything you do is go for it. And I think it exemplifies the Japanese mindset, at a national level as well as at an industrial level, but it's transferred and landed very successfully within the Lucas-Aid Ribena group. So, I'm driven every day by that factor, and I've got people supporting me because they have those great elements. They have passion, they have agility, they have a one-team ethos. It's all about that ability to focus and to support. I could not do my job here and wouldn't enjoy my job here at this relatively late stage of my life and my career if I didn't feel I had that support.
Okay, so we've spoken about some of the practical operational management, reputational, brand image, protecting the brand. Let's just go back to something else you said about things like Brexit and the situation under the new regime in the United States, where obviously things that are being said within the presidency is actually affecting people across the world who are trying to run global operations. That is not a role you would traditionally associate with somebody who comes from a security and risk management background. So my 2 questions are, first of all, how comfortable are you playing that role, and do you feel that you have the traditional capabilities? Do they cross into those roles and responsibilities? And secondly, how far out are you looking? What is your horizon, watching scope? How far away are you looking in terms of time in trying to predict what the world might look like in 6 months or a year or 2 years' time?
Great questions. To address the first question, I think we are... I was at a function at the House of Lords Wednesday, and the conversation topic pre-dinner, pre-focus for why we were there, was very much based around what unprecedented times we live in, and the old, not so old thing that's now being advanced about, if you were a betting man, which of course I'm not, David, but if you'd have had an accumulator bet on the fact that Leicester City were going to win the English Premier Football League, that Theresa May would be our second female Prime Minister in the UK, that we would have triggered a situation whereby the UK chose to begin the process of withdrawing from the European Union and community, and we have Mr. Trump in the White House, would have brought you very, very good odds at probably several thousand to 1. So, as I said, it is unprecedented, unparalleled times that we live in. How does that make me equipped to deal with that? Great question, going back to the question. I don't know. I like to think that one would assume that there is some benefit in terms of maturity of years, but a mature personality doesn't always inspire necessary knowledge or confidence. I think it perhaps equips you in terms of how you approach things, because you have had to witness decades of other change in different ways, but I still hold to my concept around being unprecedented. And I think it's a question of being very adept at learning to deal with the situation. And all those buzzwords that come out, it's mobility, it's agility, and it's not resting on your laurels. We are in an incredibly fast-changing society. I'm part of the food and drink industry, which is incredibly fast-changing and challenging. And we very much have to be enabling ourselves and equipping ourselves to deal with those issues. But it comes back to the point I made earlier. It is relying on the experts and the professionalism you have within your organisation to support the process, and to ensure that I have some sort of role or function that primarily is to enable, to nag, to chase if needed, and to try and facilitate the opportunity that we're as prepared as we can be. I think that then leads in, if I'm correct, in the second part of your question, which is how do we do the futurology piece as well, which is a subject that's sort of quite fascinating me outside of the day job now, because I realise that there's a burgeoning industry in futurologists and futurology. It is that horizon scanning that we all take part in. But certainly for me, it's being aware that things can come very much from left field and emerge without any real threat. So 6 months to a year ago, yes, we would have had the awareness of Brexit. But going 2 years ahead, David Cameron at the time made a commitment to the UK electorate that we would consider this. It landed, but it didn't really land in terms of it was one of these things that might happen, but it really isn't going to have any effect or whatever. Had huge effects, as we know. So it's a question, really. We try and go out as far as we can on that emerging threat matrix and profile. So in an ideal world, I'm trying to work with my colleagues to get ahead of the game. So we're trying to deal with the aspects we've got. How we make sure we identify what we need to do in the ascending or descending elements of risk analysis, and how we appropriate resource and how we respond to those risks that come through.